Tom Smith vanished from Misfit Garage after 6 seasons, and the truth behind his disappearance isn't what you think. The comedian turned mechanic who made us laugh through every episode just walked away from it all. But here's what nobody's talking about. The entire show might have been one massive setup from the beginning. The garage wasn't even real, the drama was scripted, and someone behind the scenes was controlling everything. What really happened to Tom Smith goes deeper than a simple career change. The reality behind Misfit Garage will make you question everything you watched. Everything started with Tom Smith getting fired from Gas Monkey Garage. But the story never added up. According to the official version, Tom took a photo with a Rolls-Royce without permission and dropped some choice words at the manager. Sounds straightforward, right? Except there's another version floating around where he simply posed for a fan photo and got canned for it. The whole thing reeks of manufactured drama. Here's where it gets interesting. Richard Rawlings was executive producer of both Gas Monkey Garage and Misfit Garage. Think about that for a second. Why would someone fire their top mechanic just to fund his competing garage across the street? The timing was too perfect, the setup too convenient. This wasn't a real firing. This was a business move disguised as reality TV conflict. Tom and Thomas Weeks suddenly had funding, equipment, and a ready-made storyline for a spin-off show. Nobody just gets fired and immediately opens a competing garage with TV cameras rolling. The whole narrative was designed to create tension between the two shops, giving viewers a reason to tune in every week. Gas Monkey versus Fired Up Garage, the ultimate rivalry that never actually existed. Richard Rawlings wasn't just producing both shows. He owned the building where Fired Up Garage operated, controlled the finances, and benefited from both series. The fired mechanic was still working for the same guy, just on a different set. Everything about that firing was theatrical, scripted to launch what would become 6 seasons of carefully orchestrated drama. Tom Smith had been planning something for decades, and most viewers never caught the real meaning behind Fired Up Garage. Back in 1988, when Tom was just a kid with dreams of opening his own shop, he wrote FU Garage on his toolbox. Everyone assumed it stood for Fired Up Garage, a clever name about passion and energy. But look at those initials again. The name was a middle finger hidden in plain sight. Whether it was directed at Richard Rawlings, the producers, or the entire Gas Monkey establishment doesn't really matter. What matters is Tom had been carrying this idea for over 25 years before the show even started. That toolbox became a prop in the series, shown multiple times as proof of his lifelong dream. But was it really about building cars, or was it about getting revenge? Some fans believe the double meaning was intentional from day one, a way for Tom to stick it to whoever fired him while maintaining plausible deniability on national television. Others think it was just coincidence, that a kid in the 80s wouldn't have that kind of foresight. But Tom's background in comedy suggests otherwise. Comedians live for wordplay, hidden meanings, and jokes that fly over most people's heads. The genius of Fired Up Garage wasn't the cars they built or the drama they manufactured. It was the name itself, a constant reminder that Tom Smith was playing his own game, following his own rules, and laughing at everyone who didn't get the joke, and he got paid to do it on television for 6 seasons. Fired Up Garage wasn't a real business, and the numbers prove it. Every time you saw that garage on television, you were looking at a closed set with no entry signs posted outside. Real customers couldn't walk in. Real repair jobs weren't happening. The only cars getting worked on were specifically chosen for the show, and the profit margins were laughable. Each restoration netted roughly $2,000 in profit. Sounds decent until you do the math. To make $100,000 annually, they'd need to complete 50 cars. That's more than 4 full restorations every single month, which is impossible for a small crew. Most custom builds take weeks or months to finish properly. The economics never worked. But here's the thing. Fired Up Garage didn't need to be profitable because it wasn't a real business. It was a television set designed to look like a functioning garage. The revenue came from Discovery Channel, not from customers. Tom and Thomas were actors playing mechanics, even though they actually had the skills to back it up. The show paid their salaries, covered the rent to Richard Rawlings, and funded the builds you saw on screen. Real garage owners watching the show must have been screaming at their televisions. Nobody operates a custom shop this way. The overhead alone would crush any legitimate business trying to survive on $2,000 per car. But Misfit Garage never pretended to be a documentary about running a successful auto shop. It was entertainment masked as reality, and viewers ate it up for 6 seasons before anyone started asking the uncomfortable questions. Misfit Garage had a revolving door problem that nobody wanted to address. Jordan Butler, one of the original cast members, disappeared early in the series with barely an explanation. One season he was there, the next he was gone. Scott McMillan followed the same pattern, here one moment, vanished the next. By the time season 6 rolled around, only Tom Smith and Thomas Weeks remained from the core cast. The show never properly explained these departures. No dramatic exits, no on-screen confrontations, just empty spaces where mechanics used to be. Reality TV thrives on conflict and resolution. But Misfit Garage just quietly erased people from the narrative like they never existed. That's not how real businesses work, and it's not how genuine reality shows operate either. Something behind the scenes was pushing people out. Maybe it was creative differences with producers. Maybe cast members realized the money wasn't worth the manufactured drama. Maybe they got tired of pretending to run a fake garage that would never turn a real profit. Whatever the reason, the constant turnover revealed cracks in the show's foundation. Tom and Thomas stuck it out because they were the faces of the franchise, the names attached to the fired-up garage brand. Everyone else was expendable, replaceable, and ultimately forgotten. The show kept rolling without them, barely acknowledging their absence. Viewers who tuned in casually might not have even noticed the missing mechanics, but the disappearances told a bigger story. Misfit Garage wasn't about building a team or creating a legitimate business. It was about keeping two personalities on screen long enough to sell advertising. Richard Rawlings controlled everything about Misfit Garage, and that's not speculation, it's documented fact. He served as executive producer on both Gas Monkey Garage and Misfit Garage, which means he had final say over storylines, casting decisions, and how both shows portrayed their manufactured rivalry. The competition between shops was about as real as professional wrestling, but his control went deeper. Rawlings owned the actual building where Fired Up Garage operated, making him Tom and Thomas's landlord. Every month, rent payments went straight back to the guy who supposedly fired them. He also maintained financial ties to the operation, benefiting from the show's success while positioning himself as the villain in their underdog story. Think about how perfectly this worked out for Rawlings. He got 2 television shows instead of 1, doubled his exposure, and created a narrative where fans had to pick sides. Gas Monkey versus Fired Up became water cooler conversation, driving viewership for both programs. And at the end of every episode, Richard Rawlings cashed checks from both productions. The fired mechanics starting their own shop storyline only works if viewers believe in genuine conflict. But when the same person produces both shows, owns the building, and controls the money, there's no real competition. It's theater. Tom and Thomas were never truly independent. They were contractors working for the same boss under a different banner. This revelation doesn't diminish their mechanical skills or Tom's genuine humor. What it does is expose Misfit Garage for what it actually was: a carefully constructed business venture designed to maximize Richard Rawlings' television empire while giving viewers the illusion of rivalry. Most viewers knew Tom Smith as the funny mechanic who could fix anything and crack jokes while doing it. What they didn't know was that Tom had been a professional stand-up comedian long before reality television came calling. He performed at legitimate venues like the Dallas Improv and Manhattan Christie Club, honing his craft in front of real audiences who paid to see him work. His comedy wasn't an act invented for Misfit Garage, it was genuine talent developed over years of stage time. The quick wit, perfect timing, and ability to turn any situation into a punchline came from actual experience in comedy clubs, not from a television script. Tom brought authentic comedic skills to the show, which made him stand out from typical reality TV personalities who force humor that falls flat. He had bigger dreams for Misfit Garage, too. Tom wanted to incorporate his stand-up background into the show more prominently, potentially doing comedy segments or finding ways to blend both worlds. Those ideas never materialized. The producers wanted a mechanic who was funny, not a comedian who fixed cars. They kept him in a box, using his humor only when it served the storyline they'd already written. After the show ended, Tom returned to his comedy roots. He continued performing stand-up, proving that his talent extended far beyond the garage. The cars were just his day job. Comedy was his passion. Misfit Garage gave him exposure and a paycheck, but it never let him fully explore what he could do with a microphone in his hand and an audience ready to laugh. Misfit Garage got canceled in 2018, and the official explanation was vague nonsense about creative direction and network decisions. But the real reasons were far more practical. Viewership had been declining steadily, and the show's production costs didn't justify the shrinking audience. When you're paying crews, renting equipment, and maintaining a fake garage set, the numbers need to make sense. They stopped making sense. The authenticity problem finally caught up with them. Audiences weren't stupid. They figured out that Fired Up Garage wasn't a real business, that the rivalry with Gas Monkey was manufactured, and that most of the drama was scripted. Once viewers lose faith in reality television's reality, they stop watching. The show couldn't survive without the illusion that kept people invested. Production costs for automotive shows are particularly brutal. Every car build requires money for parts, labor, filming equipment, and post-production editing. Misfit Garage was spending serious cash to create content that fewer people cared about with each passing season. Discovery Channel made the obvious business decision: cut the show and invest in programming with better returns. The fake garage setup became impossible to maintain. Viewers started asking uncomfortable questions online. Why was the shop always closed? Why weren't there any real customers? How did they stay in business with such terrible profit margins? The internet picked apart every inconsistency until the show's foundation crumbled. By 2018, everyone involved probably knew it was over. Tom and Thomas had extracted 6 seasons from a concept that should have lasted 3. Discovery Channel pulled the plug. Richard Rawlings moved on to other projects, and Misfit Garage became another forgotten reality show. Tom Smith didn't disappear after Misfit Garage ended. He just stopped playing someone else's game. He's still active on social media under the handle @TomSmithTheCarGuy, sharing updates about his life beyond reality television. The cars never stopped being part of his world, but now he works on personal projects without cameras, producers, or manufactured deadlines hovering over his shoulder. Comedy remains a major focus. Tom continues performing stand-up, hitting comedy clubs and venues where he can control the material, the timing, and the punchlines. No more editing, no more producers cutting his best jokes for time constraints. Just Tom, a microphone, and audiences who appreciate his unique blend of automotive knowledge and comedic talent. He's also gotten involved in animal rescue, specifically transporting and rescuing dogs. It's a surprisingly wholesome turn for someone who spent years in the testosterone-fueled world of custom car builds and reality TV drama. The social media posts show a guy who's found peace doing things that matter to him personally, not things that drive television ratings. There have been hints about Tom getting his own automotive show, something where he'd have more creative control and less manufactured conflict. Recently, he appeared in an episode titled The Return of Tom Smith, alongside Richard Rawlings, suggesting their relationship isn't as hostile as Misfit Garage portrayed. Maybe they're planning something new, or maybe it was just a nostalgic reunion for fans. Whatever comes next, Tom Smith is living life on his own terms. No fake garages, no scripted rivalries, just a talented mechanic and comedian doing what makes him happy. Tom Smith never really disappeared. He just stopped pretending. Misfit Garage was entertainment, not reality, and Tom played his part perfectly for 6 seasons before walking away. The garage was fake, the drama was scripted, and Richard Rawlings controlled everything from behind the scenes. But Tom's skills were real, his comedy was genuine, and his decision to leave reality television behind was probably the smartest move he ever made. Now he's building cars for himself, making people laugh on his own terms, and living without cameras capturing his every move. Sometimes the best career move is knowing when to quit.